So my phone cut out. But so I was at Chesterton and I had a bunch of time on my hands. So I would like read the news and whatever else. They like blocked most of social media, but I did have YouTube. And this was in 2013. So I basically ended up reading this article about Brittany Murphy and how her dad didn't think she's committed suicide, that he thought she was murdered because of the toxicology report, and that she was helping this woman who was having a bunch of controversy surrounding her job working as a U.S. Border Patrol agent. And so I basically read about that, and so it got me down the track of like, I don't even know, every kind of conspiracy that turned out to be true, that you could think of. But really, I ended up getting to the chemical part of it and connecting the chemicals being sprayed on the food and the chemicals allowed in pharmaceuticals to what I was putting had to be like properly disposed of per EPA regulations, but it was perfectly fine to be sprayed all over the crops and, injected into the genes of the seed and whatever other crazy experiments they're doing. And so my daughter, who at that time was like 5, she had suffered from food allergies for her basically entire life. And so I correlated it to what she was eating. And because I wasn't like, I didn't eat terrible food, but I wasn't like super cautious about what we were eating. I certainly didn't look at organic because I was like, I couldn't fucking afford it. Like that was never even on my mind. And I honestly, like, back when I was a teenager, like, used to wonder why the fuck people even cared about organic. And now I understand it's because they knew that there was chemicals in factory farming and everything else. And so once I connected the dots, I wanted to get the fuck out of that life. I wanted to start homeschooling my daughter and start homesteading, and I had no idea how I was going to do that. But like I had this like thought, voice, whatever come to me saying that I needed to leave the city and move back to where I grew up in the Berkshires and start homesteading and homeschooling. And so in 2015, that's what I did. I quit my job and I, started homeschooling my one daughter at the time. And all the while, nobody in my life believed me. And so I just like kind of went quiet and didn't talk about anything. I didn't talk about anything until 2020 rolled around, and I knew that the whole narrative that we were being fed was absolute BS, because I already knew that like the third leading cause of death was medical mistakes. I couldn't understand how you cared about my health all of a sudden, but you'll allow us all to get poisoned by these chemicals that are completely legal per our government. And so I was just not believing the storyline. And I already didn't believe the mainstream media. I hadn't been watching the news. Like, I didn't have cable. I literally was just living my life trying to like stay out of all the fakeness that I already knew was existing. But I didn't have anybody around that I could like confide in or talk to, because nobody else I knew was really awake. Like, my husband was, but it wasn't easy. Like, you don't have a community, like, and everybody around you doesn't want to listen to you and they think you're crazy, and you just have to like shut up or get like ostracized anyway. So that's what I did. But in 2020, I started talking about warning people not to roll up their sleeves, that this was ridiculous. Don't listen to what these officials are telling you. The experts are lying to you, basically. And again, I had family members blocking me, arguing with me. People were like just cutting me up on social media. Like, it was just ridiculous. But there was nothing I could do. And I knew that you can't change people's minds, but like, you can give them the facts. And like, the facts that I have isn't just stuff I read on the internet. Like, I legit lived in the chemical world. So I know what is in those vaccines. I've been in those laboratories. I've seen the Harvard labs. I went into a monkey lab at Harvard. I've been to all these places, MIT, like, Harvard, all those big names were Triumvirate's clients. So I had been in those labs. I had seen what they were doing for research. I know that what we're doing does not make any sense, and it's literally making us sick. And so RFK was going into these vaccines full of chemicals. You're injecting them into babies and children and totally ruining their immune system right out the jump. And so you are, because you're injecting chemicals into their body. And the mercury that they said doesn't stay in the body, well, it turns out that there was a study done with monkeys where they, fed them tuna or something, or no, they injected them with the vaccines or whatever, and it left the body. They thought it did, but they had to sacrifice the monkeys so that they could autopsy them, and found out that it actually accumulated in the brain and was causing huge inflammation. And so from the 80s, when they started this mass injection program, the chronic illness has gone up astronomically. 54% of kids or whatever have chronic disease. So that means they're on some sort of drug of some sort. And also, it was like 1 now in 34 or 37 or something kids have autism, when it used to be nothing close to that. And they correlated, the EPA study saw that the jump in all of this was in 1989. And so that was literally, it's, you can't say causation, but you can sure correlate it, and like, it's enough to have to study it and stop ignoring it. And then look the hell around. Testosterone has fucking dropped 50% in 30 years. So like 30 years ago, 1989-ish area, like we're all there. We're like, come on. You have to make the correlation. Look at the processed food. Why is it even allowed on the market? Full of chemicals? There's stuff in our food in the US that's not even allowed in Europe. It's banned. But it's sure allowed by our FDA. But they'll tell you to wear a mask to protect your health. Meanwhile, you're allowed to eat chemicals and breathe them in. Our clothes are made of them. All the plastic stuff. That's where the forever chemicals come in. Another group of thousands of chemicals that aren't regulated. Oh, the EPA is starting to watch a few of them in the water, but is that threshold going to matter? Because the study of the UC Berkeley that Tyrone Hayes did in 2010 or whatever showed that atrazine at lower levels than that is EPA permissible turned the frogs female and castrated most of them. Chemically castrated most of them, and then turned some of them female, so that males were producing fertilized eggs. 3 years in water that was below threshold that EPA allows in our drinking water. And so these rivers that are polluted, the Ohio River is the most polluted river in the entire country, and it literally services millions of people's drinking water. And it's just, we can't correlate that to drop in fertility, or they don't want to, because then they would lose money. Because realistically, all of those companies got to go. Every corporation that's polluting the earth and polluting humanity needs to go. We can't live that way. Like, we are just seeing now the repercussions of the actions of previous generations of these chemicals and everything. And like, the only way we can stop now, because literally the government isn't doing anything for us, is we have to make the conscious choices in our own lives to stop buying the stuff, to start going to our local farms, to start growing what we can, to stop buying things we don't need, and look at the products that we're getting. The shampoos, the laundry detergents, all of the cosmetics, everything like that. We have to look at, what are we doing? They went in, like, RFK talked about Wi-Fi, and Rogan is like, shit, we gotta get rid of Wi-Fi? Because it causes cancer. Like, at what expense is convenience and progress? Is that progress if our entire next generation can't have babies? Because we have faster internet and plastic fucking water bottles? Like, I don't understand what we're doing. And I didn't understand it 10 years ago, and that's why I left that life behind and decided to do what I'm doing now. Despite my back being up against a wall and my nobody believing me, my like just feeling like an outcast. And Rogan asked RFK that too, like, how does it feel to be somebody that knows all this stuff that seems to be true, but nobody is believing you and won't even give you the time of day? Well, I know what that feels like, and it fucking sucks. Like, COVID woke up so many more people. That actually, like, I finally felt like I found people that were awake, that knew something was going on, because I had already known it for a decade. And it's like, we can't keep going this way. And how long are we going to ignore this? And the only people that can change it is parents. Start looking into this stuff. Read the ingredients labels. Look up the chemicals. And because you can look up safety data sheets. So you type the chemical's name in safety data sheet, SDS. And that'll tell you so much information about that chemical. And it's like, do you really want that in your body? You can just take a seed and grow a tomato plant or an apple tree. But you can't grow a goldfish. Like, you can't grow cookies. Nobody told you, like, you weren't born eating Snickers. Like, somebody showed you those things. And why do they even exist if they're making us sick? And so, I don't know, I just had to shoot on here because, like, it's so important for parents, especially, and everyone to listen to that podcast because it's true. I've been on the other side of the environmental industry. I see what they're doing. And calling it environmental health and safety. And it's not safe at all. It's literally the problem to all of our problems. In the healthcare in this country, we spend $4.3 trillion on healthcare, and 80% goes to chronic illness. And why do we have so much chronic illness? Correlate it to the chemical exposure. Well, in World War II, that's when the chemicals started to ramp up because all these companies got approval by the government to start creating all these things for the war effort. And so then we got stuck with it all. And even back in the 60s, Rachel Carson, she's the one that wrote the book Silent Spring, where she did study the DDT and how it was just destroying the environment, and they were lying to the public. And then finally, when the EPA came along, they banned it. But that's only one of 9 chemicals that the EPA has banned in 30 fucking years. And even in 1974, the EPA was already in bed with General Mills because they were literally doing a campaign where General Mills was selling cereal, and they had little cute kid EPA books about the environment. Oh yeah, eat this toxic fucking cereal that's wrapped in plastic, but care about the environment. What a farce. Like, we can't believe this lie anymore. And the only hope is us. The only hope is us coming together and stop fighting amongst each other and realize we literally have one problem, and that is our future. The future of this country, the future of the world, the future of humanity. Because we literally are going down a route where we cannot get it back. They literally have predictions that humanity is going to start declining because we are below replacement value for having babies across the board, all across the world. And why? It's all industrialized places because of these chemicals in the food, the water, and the air. Despite having the EPA, it's not doing shit. Despite having the FDA, it's not doing shit. I was on a podcast, a radio show in 2021 with Dr. Norm Shealy. He's written 40 books. He's a holistic doctor. He's almost 90 years old. And he understands how terrible these industries are and calls the Food and Drug Administration the Federal Death Administration. Because they don't care about our health. And so the only thing we can do now is to start changing ourselves. And so I wanted to hop on here and say that, and I guess it had to come in 2 parts or whatever. If you listen to this, then, cool. I hope that someone else finds this helpful and it resonates, and you know you're not alone if you're fighting this same battle and you're protecting your children from these industries. You're doing the right thing, and there needs to be more of us. We need to build communities to go up against this crime. So I hope you all are having a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you soon.